Pittsburgh Steelers fans, it is time once again for another edition of the post-game show. No, do not adjust your dials. Yes, this show got 100% more handsome. It's both myself, Michael Beck, and Kyle Chrise joining Dave Schofield, hanging out in the post-game chat here with all of you. Steelers were successful. Kyle, I'll ask you first. How does it feel after that kind of messy end, but the Steelers are still victorious? How do you feel with this game?
Oh man, it's like, is this the most fired up you've ever been for a 3-3 team? I feel like I feel like we're in the playoffs now. You know, I'm like fired up about this win.
Yeah, no, you know what? Watching it go through, there's some good feelings there. But Dave, what were your thoughts on how the Steelers won this one?
Oh, it was a wonderful roller coaster of emotions. I mean, 14-0 at halftime, your feet went great. And then all of a sudden you're like, is it just weird they just run in the same spot every time and the Steelers can't stop it? It almost seemed like they were just trying to find Cam Heyward and saying, let's go the other way. Don't know if that's exactly it or not. I'd have to check the tape. But all I know is that I was just always in the back of my mind, I'm like, are the Steelers going to get that turnover that loses this game for them? Are they going to turn the ball over or something and it loses the game for them? But no, they got the takeaway to win the game for them. It was nice to have that be, to be on that side of it this time. It was fantastic. I don't care that it's after midnight here on the East Coast. While I'm the only East Coaster willing to come on and do the late night with you West Coast guys, let's do this. I'm excited. I'm pumped.
Yeah, the heart rate's gonna have to come down a couple levels to be able to sleep tonight. But
yeah.
Speaking of that turnover, I thought when Ben Roethlisberger, that challenge fumble, that ball going forward, I thought that might have been the play of the game. But after that moment, the Steelers defense completely turned it around from an abysmal third quarter. For whatever reason, that negative play on offense flipped that switch, and they played great again. So, Kyle, I'm curious your thoughts after watching the defense struggle so much to just completely turn around after that play. What does that one mean to you?
I mean, it was. I don't even think we had a third down on defense in that third quarter. So it was just felt like nothing could go our way. But then, we gave up the field goal. But after that, I think it was 2 3-and-outs. Of course, the field goal to tie it at the end. But OT was 2 great defensive stands. So I don't, it's hard. It's almost like James Pierce play last week. It's like, can 80% of a game or can one play make up for 80% or half of a game? And I think the answer has got to be, yes, we won in the end.
So we got this super chat here from Jeremy Smith. It ties in pretty well. He puts $4.99 in the tip jar. He says, Alex Collins will never cease to give me nightmares. Galvanizing win for us tonight. Dave, Collins had one heck of a game. Did you see something? Were the Seahawks targeting one specific player? It seemed like they're going at one spot over and over.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I put it out there. I'm like, everything they were doing was running to the right. That whole first drive of the second half, all they did was run to their right side, not outside. I mean, basically, I felt like it was going right at the right tackle. I don't know if you felt that or not, Michael, also being an O-line guy. I just felt like they were saying, we found someone we're going to run behind. We're not going to let TJ Watt, track us down. We'd rather go straight at him. And the person they didn't want to go straight at was Cam Heyward. So it's just they found some magic. And I mean, I've seen it before. Sometimes you can just get something that works and say, we're just going to do it until they stop it. So they kind of didn't. They took the ball out of Geno Smith's hands and saying, you don't have to win us this game. We're going to keep doing this. And it got them all the way back in it. It got them back in and all the way tied up on 2 different occasions. So, I mean, the Seattle fought. They really did. I was really impressed with how they played in the second half. Of course, I was also disappointed with the Steelers and their lack of tackling. But at the same time, that was just – as much as it was that the Steelers didn't play as well in the second half, it was that the Seattle Seahawks really did come out and play well in that second half, which was almost a recipe for disaster for the Steelers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do see a ton of super chats in the comments here. We'll try to get to each and every one of those, of course, on a polarizing game like tonight's. But on Dave's point there, It seemed like they were targeting Isaiah Buggs or Henry Mondo, whoever that tackle was beside TJ Watt. They seemed to try to run at him and just try to take advantage of TJ Watt's aggressiveness coming upfield. That seemed to be the spot that bubble that they kind of adjusted for at halftime, and they found some success in. But with that, with TJ Watt's running mate and Monster 19 puts 499 in the tip jar, he says, my boy Highsmith's finally getting a sack lunch. Nom nom. Kyle, Alex Highsmith, sack and a half. What did you think out of him and his efforts tonight?
But I'll admit I was thinking that 56 has been kind of invisible for the past month, but he was. I don't know if we finally got 8, 56, and 90 all together, a whole full week of practice, and that mattered. But it felt like the pass rush, besides that third quarter where everything kind of just became invisible, the pass rush was what we expected. The week 1 pass rush that we saw.
Yeah, no, that was probably the best, as you said, that we've seen out of that group since week 1. Melvin Ingram not really getting into the party, but the other two definitely more than made up for it. Let's get to another super chat here from Wilson Pava, who puts $4.99 in the tip jar. Says, good win despite awful third quarter and awful tackling. Press can punt the heck out of the ball a whole lot better than Jordan Berry did today. Of course, he had a punt blocked for a touchdown in the Vikings game. Feeling you on the time, Dave. It's definitely a late one.
12:34 a.m. right now for anyone that's keeping track.
So just a general question for you on this one, then, Dave. The later games, is it harder to be a fan on the East Coast when these games are going to overtime? There's work coming up on Monday morning. What's that kind of like for a Western group here?
Honestly, it's worrying about how bad tomorrow's going to suck, because even if I wasn't here right now, I wouldn't be able to calm down to go to sleep before 3 a.m. So I might as well at least be here and then writing articles. I hope I can still function to get those done. But I have a feeling even when it's all said and done, I'll go to lay down. I'm still not going to fall asleep because, but it's the anticipation of that's what's going to happen. Like I grabbed I'm sorry, those 1 o'clock games today were clunkers. I actually fell asleep during those, and I was happy to get the nap in. So I'm ready to go. I mean, I don't know. I could just sit here and talk about 1,000 different things from this game right now.
You got to move out to the West Coast. There's nothing better than setting your alarm for 9:30 a.m., checking your fantasy lineup, and then you're good to go.
Well, I don't know. You didn't get up and watch that. I mean, I'm sorry, but the 9:30 a.m. Eastern time game was actually better than all the 1 o'clock games. But anyway, I digress. Go ahead.
Yeah. Now, getting back to this, well, I guess I should say I've also been kind of struggling to sleep a little bit with my team winning first game of the year over in Montana, flying in. So, but this might be the second night in a row with no sleep. But getting into the Steelers game itself, and Eric Askew puts $5 in the tip jar, brings up the ref stunk. And while Jeff isn't here, I wish Nickelodeon was there to slime Boswell and TJ for their infamous gack. Now the refs, well, really, I guess we should point to Mike Tomlin first. He was not happy with the refs. He was hot on the field. He was hot in the press conference. Kyle, I'll ask you first. Do you like seeing Coach Tomlin so passionate about something? He's usually a guy that's pretty stoic. In this instant, he was fired up.
Yeah, I wish I could have read lips, because when you see him that fired, like when we came into the press conference on Tuesday at 1-3, he was smiles and couldn't be cooler. So when you see him fired up, you think it's something important. Although, I'm never one to defend the refs. I think, even if they didn't at the end there, even if they didn't say the clock stopped at 3 seconds, I think Geno still would have got the spike down before the clock hit 0.
Okay, now, Dave, with this last play, were you happy with how it all played out?
You mean in regulation? In course.
Regulation,
yeah, because the last play of overtime, I'm still flying high off that one. Yeah. I'm just glad that it wasn't a talking point, because it screwed up how things should have played out. Exactly what Kyle was saying. They got the spike off with 1 second left. Maybe 2 if they wouldn't have stopped the game. But there was no reason to interject into the game there. And the reason I would be upset if I was Mike Tomlin is that play wasn't even close. It wasn't even close. There was nothing to review. And it's almost like they got buzzed in to stop the clock for the Seahawks just in case. That's what I would have the problem with. Now, the Seahawks they did a really good job of getting over there and spiking the ball. So I'm glad that it didn't. I wouldn't have, honestly, although, a win is a win, I wouldn't have felt as good with if the Steelers would have ended up winning the game on something that completely was screwed up with the officials in that aspect. So if you know what I'm saying? So I feel like it was done wrong, but it still ended up with the same result.
I think the worst missed call might have been when TJ got that kind of was like a personal foul. He got helmeted. He got a head first hit, and they didn't miss, and they missed that. That led to them tying it up. Then, so I think that's the bigger missed call.
Now, thankfully, the Steelers won this game. If they had lost this game, that final sequence in the regulation would be picked on, especially because there's a bye week for the next 2 weeks straight. So thankfully, I think we dodged a bullet with that one. Getting back to the super chats here, Wilson Pava puts $4.99 in the tip jar. He said, here's my tip for the defensive half. Unlike Dave, I'm dead. And have to teach at 7 a.m. Keep up the great work, BTSC. Y'all truly do great work. Thank you for that, Wilson. It's much appreciated. And I know we love doing this for all of you. Now, Snowman also puts $5 in the tip jar. He says, I have my heart transplant scheduled for tomorrow. Wow, can't take many more games like those. I don't know if you're being serious, but Snowman said that if you're actually having a heart transplant, then our prayers are with you.
Wow.
If that was just from the game, I can feel you to a degree. But let's throw another comment. I think we'll all be thinking about you. So let us know your status on that one. But
wow.
So Kyle, just getting the game itself here. Of course, TJ Watt. I don't know if we quite talked about him enough. His stat line features 7 tackles, 3 TFLs, 2 sacks, at least 1 fumble, maybe 2. I don't know how that's going to get listed. A few batted passes. Was this kind of the defensive player coming out party of the year for TJ Watt? Because this was a ridiculous game in prime time.
Certainly this season, we've been waiting for a game like this. I think that I hate to say this is kind of the expected performance, week in and week out from someone like TJ. But the last couple weeks, he's been, he had a 2-sack game or whatever. Last week, it might've been the 2 weakest sacks ever. But, this is kind of what we expect week in and week out. And it's just been close. It's been close. Last week, I think he was coming, I don't know, these things more than me, but it felt like he was taking a wider route maybe last week. Or not, but obviously he got there this week.
Yeah, no, he got home. So, Dave, I guess my question to you is TJ Watt underpaid, or are we getting the value out of his contract?
Let's just say this. TJ Watt had a great game. Would we be saying he had as much of a great game if, let's say, Seattle misses that kick to send it to overtime? Because what made TJ Watt, he had a great game anyway, but when you step up and do what you did in overtime, that just sent it through the roof. And that's the key. When you need a play, when you need one play from somebody and he's coming up and making those plays, Steelers Nation knows what they're getting from TJ Watt.
What has he got? 8 sacks now in the year, I think?
That is a great question. Right?
Yeah, as Dave looks that up, I'll pull up this super chat from Gabriel Golden, who puts $5 in the tip jar. They say, just got back to my hotel room from the game. I blame overtime on whoever decided to wait to play Renegade till the start of overtime.
Big mistake.
Hey, you know what? It seemed like Kyle, I'll throw this to you while Dave's looking up the stat. Now, it seemed like Renegade has not been working throughout the early part of the season. Now, 2 weeks in a row, the Steelers going to come up clutch. Are you still on board with the Steelers' famous fight song?
Yeah, I'm all aboard Renegade. We saw it last week. It should have been for the drive that led to the field goal tie tonight. But hey, maybe the people in the booth know more than we do. They knew we needed an OT Renegade. But I think anyone who was, they were wondering during the Bengal game, during the Raiders game, if Renegade was time to put to pass. But hey, sticks forever.
Yeah, there you go. Sticks forever. Now, Dave, do we know how many sacks TJ has now?
According to Pro Football Reference, he had 5 coming into the game, and
Okay.
according to the Steelers' official media guide, he had 2 today. So that's what I wasn't sure of. I never went back to see if the strip of Geno Smith, if he had crossed the line of scrimmage or not, if that would go down as a second sack. So it was behind the line of scrimmage because, at the time, I'm just excited. I don't care. The Steelers have the ball. I didn't care if it was going to go down as a sack, but he is officially had, I assume this is official, 2 sacks on the game. So that would put him at 7 for the season.
7, and really he missed a game and a half with that groin injury too. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's quite the NFL lead, but I think it puts him number 2. So Eric Askew puts $5 in the tip jar here and throws this question to Kyle. What Yin's talking about question. He asks, what's Ben's zip percentage this week? I know you guys were focusing a lot on that during last week's cast. Can you tell the people what the zip is, or they don't have to listen to that show?
You can always listen every Friday to what Ian's talking about. But I think we had some legitimate conversation about, does Ben still have the zip that it takes to make some of those throws? And last week I thought there were a couple of near picks where it was a question of he just barely got it in there. Then I think we saw the TD pass to Claypool, and I think the consensus we had was that Ben still has the arm. Tonight we didn't get to see a ton of passes beyond 10 yards. Big surprise, but so I don't know if he had some touch, I think, tonight. I don't know if there was a lot of zip on display though.
Yeah, there were times Ben was dealing. Now, I'll throw this up from Joel Campbell, puts $2 in the tip jar. In reference to TJ Watt, I believe, saying superstars doing superstar things. With that, Dave, not talking about superstars necessarily, but a superstar 7th-round pick for the Steelers. Tre Norwood had one heck of a game, especially on third down. He was flying around the field. Dave, I'm curious what your thoughts are on the Steelers' 7th rounder and what he's been able to do in such an early amount of times as being a 7th-round draft pick.
Yeah, he made big plays in the moments when they needed him most. I mean, was it? I'm thinking of 3 more than any others.
I think there's 3, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it was 2 in the first half and 1 in the second. If I have that, if I remember correctly at this time of night. But yeah, he really did a nice job. He had the 3 tackles, 1 for loss and a pass defense. That was, and you're like, oh, well, it's not like he had numbers that blew off the page, but he made, that stop of DK Metcalf, was that the opening drive or the second drive, whichever one that was. That was huge to force a punt right in that moment. So when you see his number on the field, it's for good things happening. And that's what you want to see with somebody in the secondary. You're not seeing his number. You're seeing his number a lot of times without the nameplate, if you know what I mean, because he's not running behind someone where you see his back trying to catch up, and just made some really nice plays tonight.
Was he the best tackler tonight? Maybe, I don't know.
Well,
him or Cam Heyward, probably.
Yeah. So, he had some, that's a good point, but because we wouldn't have thought of that at the time because they weren't struggling with their tackling on the first couple that he made. It wasn't until the second half that really reared its ugly head.
Yeah, no, it certainly did. Kyle, sticking with the defensive backs here, Minkah Fitzpatrick, teams are, specifically quarterbacks, are looking where he is on the field and deciding we're not throwing the ball in that direction at all this year. But he's kind of been a heat-seeking missile. It seems like getting into offensive players' legs and their midsection, laying the boom a little bit. What do you think of Minkah in this kind of role, where teams are just completely avoiding him with the football, but he's still making some decent plays?
Yeah, I don't know if some of that is because we don't really have a nickel, a pure nickel, so he has to come up in some of that run defense. But it seems like he's been thriving in run D. That's where we're seeing him at least, and we're not seeing him so much on the back end. And is that because he's being asked to do different things? That's something I'm not exactly sure of, but it seems like he's been thriving more in the run game than necessarily in the pass.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm seeing too. Now, Dave, when it comes to the rest of the guys of the secondary, Terrell Edmonds had a couple plays, but he also got a couple times. Arthur Mollett made a couple decent plays in the backfield. Hayden and Sutton weren't tested too much, but just what do you think about the other guys outside of Minka and Norwood along this defensive backfield?
Let's just say this. It wasn't like it was a huge passing effort for the Seahawks, if you know what I mean. I mean, Geno Smith. I'm trying to bring it up for the game. I'm sorry. I was looking at things individually. I mean, did it feel like he threw the ball 32 times?
No.
I mean, it didn't feel like he threw the ball 32 times, but Geno Smith threw the ball. He was 23 of 32 for 209 yards. What really got Seattle going was that run game. So it's not like the secondary stood out in a huge way, good or bad. I mean, because especially we're thinking of, what's fresh in our mind, overtime, the second half. I mean, that first half, the Steelers defense was just dominant. I mean, that's just what they did. So the secondary, they were more of a didn't make news for the wrong reasons, but also didn't necessarily stand out for the right ones either, just because of the way the game was playing out.
Yeah, right. We didn't see Cam Sutton at all. Like, he was pretty quiet. Joe Hayden, I really only noticed when he was missing tackles, unfortunately. I saw Pierre just a little bit at the end. I think Justin Lane might have had more on the stat line than Pierre. I don't know.
Hey, Pierre made a great play on that final regulation snap, punching the ball out from DK.
He got a forced fumble.
Back-to-back plays, I think it was, with the ball going on the turf and Seattle recovering on that final drive. So the Steelers had tons of opportunities to end this game. The second half of the show, I think we'll focus a little bit more on the offensive side, but the front seven of the defense needs a little bit of coverage here too. Kyle, I'll ask you this first. What do you think on Devin Bush? Because I know a lot of Steelers Twitter, and I'm sure you're going to get into it a ton on your social media themed show. They're kind of jumping down the throat of Devin Bush as someone kind of avoiding contact. The team's kind of trying to take advantage of him. He's not that playmaker you expect from a top 10 pick. So what do you think of Devin Bush in general? And is the social media, are they right? Are they saying the right things about him, or are they completely off kilter?
Well, on social media, everyone is a hater. It's like there's no in between. There's no nuance. There's no context. But he's certainly not. He's certainly not Vince Williams in the run game. He's certainly not hitting the holes like we've seen from inside linebackers. Of course, he's side to side. No one's quicker. But it seems like his gap work isn't ideal, as we saw in the third quarter as they ran all over. I don't know if he's getting blocked out of plays, over pursuing, or just not attacking his assignments. But he's not. Before he came up with that play in overtime, I would have said it was a bust game for him.
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't the best that we've seen of him. I think he's still nursing some injuries and definitely trying to get back from that ACL and groin injury that he suffered this year. But Dave, I'm curious your thoughts on him and also Joe Schobert, the starting pairing.
Well, let's just say this. Devin Bush did not look like he did last week before he went out with injury, because that was by far his best game of the season. And part of it, it might have also been what the Steelers were trying to do. But notice on third down, they were taking both of those guys off the field. They were running that special package out there with the three outside linebackers, and their only inside linebacker was Spillane. So there was a lot of interesting stuff they're still trying to figure out. I know some people are really down on Schobert. I know a lot of people were frustrated with Bush tonight. Honestly, I focus so much on the D line and the outside linebackers on defense with everything. I have to go back and watch again to look at those second level guys. So let's just say this: they didn't stand out in a good way, and there were times I was like, "Come on, guys, make a tackle."
Yeah, totally fair. Now, Kyle, one of the things that was also pretty noticeable, even if you weren't watching that position group specifically, Robert Spillane played a ton. Are you cool with seeing Spillane, especially seemingly on those third down types situations? Do you like him on the field in those spots?
At first glance, that's kind of like a high anxiety thing because I'm like, okay, well, I know Spillane can hit the gap and stop the run, but he's always kind of been maybe a little bit more liability in coverage. But I think what we're seeing is that he's holding his own out there. I don't see him getting, I don't see him getting, at least tonight, like you said, this wasn't Aaron Rodgers out there. This wasn't even Derek Carr. So I think he held his own tonight. It seems like that is the plan and the strategy. They like him in that role there. So it doesn't necessarily fit what makes sense to me, but they're sticking with it.
I was going to say, if I could jump in one more thing, just to throw out some of the stats, is that, Devin Bush had 6 tackles. Joe Schobert was credited for 2, and as was Spillane. But other than the Bush fumble recovery, which I was scared to death that he was pulling, the Pee Wee football play and he was going to start running the wrong direction until I'm like, turn around. And, which you did. I just, that crazy flashbacks with that one. But none of the 3 inside linebackers had any other, defensive stats than just the tackles and the 1 fumble recovery. No tackles for loss, no passes defense, no quarterback hits, things of that, no forced fumbles, things like that. That's the biggest thing that you weren't getting from that position group.
And they didn't seem to blitz them a lot tonight. I mean, I'd have to go back and look secondhand, but I don't feel like there was a lot of blitz from the inside linebackers.
To be fair, Devin Bush and I'd say Joe Schobert aren't exactly blitzing linebackers. I think that's possibly why you see Spillane more on the field in third down, because he's more of that lay in the wood kind of guy and just trying to get in that mix. I think that's probably the possibility. And another reason why you see that extra edge rusher on the field when Ingram checks in, just to get more of a blitzing type body, someone that does a little bit better. So I think that's probably why we don't exactly see them blitzing too much. But another big name that I think we need to talk about, and I'll ask Dave this one first. Cam Heyward, he had himself another very good game. He has been playing out of his mind this year. He looks like he's dialed the clocks back. It seems like he hasn't aged at all. Had a sack. I think he had like 6 solo tackles or something. It was pretty ridiculous game.
If you want the numbers, he had 6 solo tackles, 9 tackles total, a sack for an 8-yard loss, 2 tackles for loss, 1 quarterback. Well, that was the sack, the quarterback hit, I guess. So yeah, I mean, he's not the highest ranked defensive player through 5 weeks, according to Pro Football Focus, for nothing. Cam Heyward is the man. He is. Yeah. That's just, he's driving what teams have to do. You can't just worry about TJ Watt. It's Watt, Heyward. You can't even look at one even more than the other. And of course, everyone wants to say, "Oh, well, you gotta chip TJ Watt or he's going to get that sack," like the announcers were saying tonight. But my thing is like, every play that Cam Heyward's out there, you've got to send. If you only leave him with one guy blocking him, you're going to lose.
Yeah, I think Chris Collinsworth said it at least twice. How Cam was basically holding one arm on the blocker and then making the tackle with the other. So he's out there playing one-handed, really.
Yeah, Heyward is freaky strong. Now, one of the things I want to ask you, Dave, on this, I know Collinsworth called him a surefire Hall of Famer. That might be a little coming on strong right now. Maybe if you can do this for a couple more years, I wouldn't be surprised. He certainly has a lot of those things you look for in a guy like that. But is he playing the best year of his career right now?
It feels that way. I mean, I don't know if I could throw that out there, back that up statistically or anything else. But it sure feels that way. I mean, it's just teams, when they go to prepare for the Steelers, they see so much more than just what a casual NFL fan would see from Cam Heyward. Just looking at, oh yeah, that's that guy there that they have to have four helmets from the other team all surrounding him to make sure he doesn't do anything. He throughout the league, Cam Heyward is getting even more respect now. And that's why I said I wanted to call him Glenn McKenna, because, the 30-year Glenn McKenna is good, but the 35-year Glenn McKenna is even better. I mean, that's Cam Heyward. He is just, Brian Anthony Davis was saying this as well, that he just is, getting better with age. It seems like it's just unreal. I can't believe it.
Was
he
that
was
how I
talking.
met your?
Oh, I was just going to say, I think before the season, he was talking about how he was going to try to take some snaps off this season, and I think if anything, he's doing the opposite.
No, I was just going to ask Dave.
It's a How I Met Your Mother reference.
Oh, goodness gracious! I think that's from the second last season during the wedding stuff.
Yeah, you were right.
Yeah, there we go. Now, before we get to our little break here, and I should throw this up, Master Pete puts $1.99 in the tip jar. Doesn't leave a comment, so if you do, we'll try to get your comment read there, Master P. But Kyle, Stephon Tuitt hasn't come back yet, but he's been practicing. I'm very excited.
Working out. He's not allowed to practice.
Excuse me. Yeah, no, that's a much better terminology here. Kyle, when he is available, playing next to Cam Heyward, like how he has been, what is the limit for this front seven?
I mean, who are you going to block? That's the question. You're going to have to pick who are you going to, are you going to block TJ? Are you going to block Cam? And now Highsmith is turning on. It seems like it seems like it's a championship caliber defense when it's all together. Now, are we? The question is it ever going to be all together? I don't think that there's been any kind of clue that Tuitt is anywhere closer to the field, than Tyson, as far as we know. And I don't know. It just seems like they're being very intentionally confusing, maybe, or elusive about his status.
So thankfully, we are heading into the bye week, so perhaps a little bit more extra time for Stephon to perhaps see the field. I know Coach Tomlin did specifically mention injured players. There's for Master P. Tuitt coming back will be a huge help. I couldn't agree more on that. If he does come back, sorry, go ahead, Dave.
I was going to say just because I wanted to say something about the whole Stephon Tuitt thing. The only thing, and I don't want to be like, going to rain on everyone's parade. Going to complain about a great player coming back, and I'm not. So don't take it that way. But when Stephon Tuitt comes back, they might ask Cam Heyward to do different things. So you might not be seeing the same, numbers or things like that from Cam Heyward. It doesn't mean that he's any less of a player. He just might not be asked to do the same thing. But if they can bring Stephon Tuitt back and have Cam Heyward still doing the stuff he does, would be great. But I don't really care as long as and that's the thing with Cam. That's what makes him such a good defensive captain, is that he doesn't have to have the sack numbers. He doesn't have to have great numbers. He just has to he'll do whatever he has to do to have that defense putting the Steelers in position to win games.
And that's what he's done for a number of years. Last year, he didn't have the crazy stats. He didn't have those double-digit sacks that he has in years prior. He does what is asked of him, but we are 30 minutes through our show here, so we're going to flip over to the second half and focus a little bit more on the offense, because obviously there's a lot going on that side of the football too. So if you're watching on YouTube and Facebook, just hang tight. If you're listening on a podcast platform, whatever that one may be, click over to part 2 right now. Alrighty, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, it is time for the second half of the Steelers postgame podcast. Once again, my name is Michael Beck. I'm here with Dave Schofield and Kyle Chrise of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 500. They are 3-3 heading into the bye week. Dave Schofield, what does that mean to you and to this organization?
That means we can feel better for 2 weeks rather than feeling terrible. You know what I mean? Yeah, it really does. It goes to show that this team is still a work in progress. I mean, come on, up 14-0 at halftime. What really would have made Steelers fans and players and everyone feel better is if you come out and you win the game, 30-3 or something like that. But it's the NFL. These are all professional players. And what do you know? Those Seattle Seahawks, they're going to go out there and try to win a game as well. So they did come out and play well in the second half, but the Steelers did enough to win. And that's the key. I mean, if all you have to do is look around to another team that happens to be leading the division right now in which the Steelers play, and you learn that you don't always have to win pretty. And all you have to do is sometimes win the games that you shouldn't even win, because that's why they're leading the division. Is they won 3 games they shouldn't have won, but they managed to find a way to win them. And that's what happened tonight with the Steelers. I mean, if it wasn't for that good first half, just think of how this would have ended just based on the second half. The Steelers did enough in the first half to have enough of a lead, did enough of the second half to send it to overtime, and then got the big play. So build on it, roll through the bye week, and get ready for some AFC North football.
Oh, yeah. Cleveland Browns are the next opponent a couple weeks from now. Kyle, I'll load up the super chat and ask it to you. You tend to comb through social media, of course, for your podcast, and you break some stuff down. So I want to know if you think this is a correct statement here from Tyler W., who puts $5 in the tip jar. He says, the Steelers played arrogantly, but also played big when we needed it. Defense can't hold teams to less than 20 points, so the offense needs to target 28 points per game. Do you agree with this statement, Kyle?
I mean, the general gist of it makes sense, but I remember the Killer Bees years. We said we got to score 30 points every game, and that didn't happen. So what the reality is, it becomes situational. I hate to sound like coach. Every game is a different situation, and sometimes you got to play a backup quarterback and you shut him out in the first half, and you can still take you to overtime. And sometimes you play the best quarterback in the conference in week 1, and you make him look like Colt McCoy. So yes, we want to keep them to under 20 points, and yes, we want to score 28 every time, but sometimes there might be a 9-6 squeaker in there, and we're gonna have to win those too.
No, wholeheartedly agree on that. Another super chat here from Thanks Mean Joe, who also puts $5 in the tip jar. Says Cam was playing like a man against boys today, pushing blockers back with one hand, then playing seek and destroy. Gotta love it. Now, we already talked a bunch about the defensive front in the first half. What about the push from the Steelers' offensive line? I'll ask this to Dave first here. The Steelers offense, they did all right running the ball. Najee Harris not quite 100 yards, but I believe 86 on the ground. They had a decent day for themselves. Ben was fairly clean. What did you think of the push from this group that is still definitely trying to figure things out?
They're still trying to figure things out. I mean, you're exactly right there. Yeah, Najee Harris had 81 on the ground.
81.
The Steelers had 119 rushing yards total, and that's including minus 3 from Ben taking a knee. Well, I don't know if you can call the one take. Well, the one was a flop, one was a knee. You know what I mean? So and the person who had the least amount of yards other than Roethlisberger was Eric Ebron rushing the ball, which, I mean, my goodness, I can't believe that was his third rushing touchdown of his career. But it's funny because I know Kyle, watching social media, probably saw how maybe some people out there were saying, yeah, the Steelers faked an end around to Ebron and it didn't fool anyone, like they'd ever really give him the ball. So guess what? If it didn't fool anyone, you give him the ball for a touchdown. Anyway, let's get back to the O-line. They had their moments. Much better. I mean, out of Najee's 81 rushing yards, I think it was it 46 or 48 of them came in the fourth quarter or overtime. And that was kind of, when you needed them. So as the game wore on, they started to really, and it came back to a close and then tie game. That's when they really started getting a little bit more push. So it's the offensive line. I think you need to go from kickoff to triple zeros is what you really want to see there. It's going to continue. They're going to have up and down weeks. This week, I wouldn't call it an up week, but it also definitely wasn't their trough game either. The lowest of the low.
I think it's encouraging that, when we were tied at 17 there in the fourth, we still were able to commit. I don't know if we committed, but we ran the ball to get that field goal to go up at the end. So we didn't abandon it in the fourth, at least.
Yeah, to even tweak the question a little bit for you, Kyle, here, this offensive line in general, it seems like they're kind of starting to play a little bit better together. Would you agree with that? Are they playing better now than they did against Buffalo and the Raiders early on in this season?
Well, yeah, I think the last two games have obviously been a different, it's a different subset than the first month. You'd have to, they've certainly progressed that long. I think it was, I don't want to say was it hit and miss tonight, but, we had a couple big a couple 9-play, 8-play drives, and then a couple that fell flat. So we still need maybe some big play passing to make up for the lack of, big drives that we're not consistently having.
Now, Straight Ace puts $5 in the tip jar, says, have to admit, the O-line is slowly coming together. And I would definitely agree with this. Of course, coming to the bye week now, Zach Banner's been taken off the injured reserve. He was a healthy scratch, but he was still available before being scratched before the game. So we should expect him to be in the lineup in some capacity when they take on the Cleveland Browns in a couple weeks. So, Dave, I'm curious what you think will be different when Zach Banner's able to go, whether or not you'll start at right tackle, and how the Steelers tackle situation is going to look with who's starting at what spot.
Well, I didn't hear any injury update from Coach Tomlin in his press conference, but the only player that that it's known that there was any kind of injury was Dan Moore Jr. left the game early with a hip injury. Unless he was out there on the last couple plays when the Steelers were taking a knee and I didn't notice. I know that he wasn't in there in the first drive in overtime. So he wasn't back out there. That's going to have a lot to do with things. It might just be that the Steelers say, you know what, if Dan needs a little bit time to make sure this hip is okay, then we have other options. But it was going to be interesting. It was either going to be Zach Banner or Joe Haeg not getting a helmet tonight. I still feel that the Steelers waited till Saturday to put Juju on IR because they needed to see if there was somebody other than Banner that they were going to need for this game, like if one of the wide receivers wasn't going to be able to play or something like that. And that's why they waited so late in the week. But it didn't hurt to go ahead and do it. I really don't know what they're going to do. I mean, we'll see if that injury if there's any seriousness to it or not. But I don't know I didn't know what they were going to do this past week. I mean, it went from once he was on the 53. I'm like, for all I know, Zach Banner could start or he could not have a helmet. I had no idea which way they were going.
Do you think that anyone has unearned their helmet?
Not at this point. No. I mean, there's so much. I mean, Dan Moore Jr. is such a young player. He's going to have growing pains, but at the same time, I often wondered, I'm like, are they still going to go with him when Banner returns just to say that, well, he was only filling in because of injury? I didn't know that was necessarily the case. So I don't know what they're going to do with Chooks. I really don't know. Let's just say this. I like what Coach Tomlin said in his press conference Tuesday I'd much rather worry about how I'm going to worry about having 6 players than what I'm going to do if I only have 4. So, well, I mean, we'll see what they do.
Yeah, time will tell. And in your original answer, Dave, you did bring up the receivers, which I think is important here. And I'll throw this to Kyle first. James Washington was a complete no-show after a catch early in the first half. It seemed like he wasn't even playing, but it seemed like he was healthy. I saw the 13er on the sideline, but not on the field despite Juju's injury. It was Ray McLeod carrying a bulk of those snaps. Also, with this bye week, it seems that Anthony Miller, once he kind of understands the playbook, will be brought up into the Steelers offense. Whether or not he gets any significant playing time, only time will tell on that too. What do you think is going on with the Steelers receivers here in the number 3 and 4 guy? Because it seems like it's a bit of a wash right now after Juju goes on the IR.
I'm wondering if James Washington wasn't 100% and he kind of just stuck it out there because they weren't sure what they were going to need. And I don't know the snap counts, but I mean, Washington only got 1 target, and Ray only got 2, and I don't think the 5th guy played any snaps at all. I didn't see, I didn't see Cody out there at all.
Yeah.
So and we knew there's a lot of Freiermuth and of course a lot of Najee, but I'm wondering if Washington just wasn't 100%.
That's a good point because he has been battling a groin injury as well. He was on that all groin team. The Steelers had going there for a while. But Dave, same question to you. What do you think is going on with this receiver spot? Because it definitely seems like a lot of stuff's up in the air.
Yeah, and honestly, it might have just been, hey, we're going to do what we do this week, and we have an extra week to try to figure it out during the bye week. Let's not overwork whichever one might have needed the least amount of work between Washington and Claypool. I mean, Claypool was out there. He had 7 targets, but only had 2 catches. And kind of struggled in this game. So maybe they were keeping that down. I like them. I mean, Freiermuth, 7 receptions on 7 targets. He was kind of filling in that role. But you brought up Anthony Miller. Remember, he's on the practice squad. And for all we know, that there's no plan for him at all. When you sign a guy to the practice squad, I mean, just think there was reports that Carl Joseph was going to be elevated to the 50 or brought on the 53-man roster as soon as he was up and going. He's been elevated off the practice squad once. You sign guys to the practice squad to just kind of see what they can do. And I'm not looking for Anthony Miller to be anything for the Steelers. So unless they really see something that they like in practice. So I don't know if they have it figured out, but I think they almost went into it this week knowing that it was that they could get by for a week before they figure it out.
Now, Anthony Miller was going to sign on the Jaguars with the idea that once he understands the playbook, would be in the lineup. So to kind of turn your back to that, I know Jacksonville's in a bad spot. Playing time, that's pretty important if you want to stick around in the NFL. So maybe there's something behind that. Again, time will tell. But I'll throw this next one down to Kyle here. Dave mentioned Chase Claypool, buddy Chase from up here in Canada. He had probably his worst game as a professional football player. He made a ton of mistakes. That pass interference took the Steelers out of field goal range until Najee made a great play to put them back in field goal range, even though Boswell's kick looked like it would have been good from another 10 yards back, who he's been on the money. We'll get into him a little bit later. But what do you think of Chase Claypool? It seems like, once again, he's not fighting for those 50-50 balls. When he leaves his feet, he falls on his chest. He's making mistakes. What is going on here? Is this a sophomore slump, or is this the actual player?
I think even the most disheartening mistake was whatever the miscommunication where he with Ben, where Ben thought he was going to do the comeback route, and he just kind of went, and it's like, man, like that's the kind of communication that has to happen. The execution is one thing, but the above the neck play has to be there before. I don't know. I don't know. It seems like every other week we hear if maybe Roethlisberger talk about how Claypool should be, like a kind of a Calvin Johnson or or a Randy Moss type of guy, and it seems like they're always challenging him to be that. And I don't want to be. It's like Martavius Bryan. He's not stepping up to the challenge. But after last year, when we saw 10 touchdowns, it's kind of disappointing when he's out there with 2 catches.
Yeah, and of course Ben did miss him running down the numbers there. Claypool was running open. That could have been a big play. Ben has been part of the issue sometimes, but I don't think Claypool did himself any favors at all. Dave, I'm curious if you agree on all the Canadians you were talking.
I think you guys kind of hit it there. I don't know that he's 100%. There was a report earlier that he went to the locker room with Claypool. We don't know if it's injury related or not, but it's just as much as we don't want an early bye week, and when we saw the schedule coming out, we're like, the week 7 really in a 17-week season after the Steelers got screwed out of not having a bye last year. But now that it's here, I'm like, yeah, this could be with Juju out for the season and some of the wide receivers a little bit, dinged up in practice this week. This could be a good time for it.
So yeah, this is going to be a huge week now for the Steelers up ahead with this bye week, trying to figure out their health first and foremost, and figure out some lineup, getting some guys back in, and maybe trying to reshuffle a little bit with Juju out of the lineup. Now, the other receiver I think we should also touch on was Deontay Johnson, who once again looks like he's Ben Roethlisberger's favorite target. He had that one drop which hurt in the second half, which seemed to be kind of setting up something where the Steelers could have taken control of the game later in the game, but it bounced out of his hands. I believe that's his first drop of the season. Kyle, do you think he's become a number 1 wide receiver in this league, or is there still steps for him to take?
I mean, it's statistically and everything we see on film, I guess he's been our number 1, and I think, I guess the big question this week was who was going to be in the slot. I think we saw him in the slot a good amount. Is that true? I don't think, because we wanted to see
they were switching it up. They were.
Yeah.
Clay was out wide most of the game.
So that was an interesting decision. But if that's who Ben has the most trust with, then great. Let's put him over the middle. But it seems like he does everything that we ask. If it's the deep ball, if it's over the middle, the whole route tree. It seems like he's the complete guy. Yeah.
To move on to the next position group here, because I really want to make sure we hit on everyone. The tight ends, Dave, I thought were outstanding, highlighted by Pat Freiermuth, Eric Ebron getting a touchdown. Gentry seems to have rapidly improved his blocking. What do you think of that trio? To me, had a great game.
Yeah, I mean, can you really complain about it? I mean, Freiermuth, I've said before, caught all of his targets. Seven receptions on 7 targets for 58 yards. Ebron, he was only targeted twice, caught them both. I mean, the one was let's just say it was such a tight catch that he had to go up and catch for the first down that you couldn't even tell that was him for sure, because you couldn't even see his number because the defense was on him so much. So, and then of course, the run, Ebron did have that horribly missed block where that I mean,
funny,
they even showed the replay of how bad he missed it. But tight ends miss blocks. That's what happens. You just don't want them to be that bad. But in all, for the position group, I was pretty happy with their play and their utilization.
So, Kyle, just talking Freiermuth specifically here, I've been pretty vocal about thinking he could be perhaps one of the top tier tight ends, or if not the tier below that. If the Steelers utilize him more, is that insane thinking, or is Freiermuth that guy?
You remember how Heath Miller was relied upon on third down situations and in over the middle, and it seems like Freiermuth can be that person. He sits, he's not doing these, he's not doing Gronk. I remember we called him Little Gronk for a minute. He's not doing like Gronk routes, up the seam yet, but everything that we need, possession over the middle, not dropping it. And, we've seen some blocking too. So he seems to be the guy.
Yeah. He sprung Deontay Johnson's 25-yard rush. That was a hell of a block by Freiermuth. Yeah, quickly becoming a fan favorite here.
Yeah, that was a nice looking play.
Yeah, great design too. I think we should also give Matt Canada some props. I think he called a very good football game. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I would definitely go there. I mean, some people are like, oh, it's still the same stuff. No, I haven't thought that it looks like the same stuff for quite some time, but it seemed like it was even more. Each week, it seems like it's growing even more, and you're like, oh, that's a nifty play. Oh, that's a nifty play. Oh, that's what I want to keep saying each week.
Yeah. And we've been in situations where we can open up the playbook. We've had third and short, like the games against the Raiders and the Bengals. I mean, we were starting off in the hole. We were starting off like 1st and 20, 1st and 15. So we're finally able to open up the playbook, I think.
Now, I think the big guy we need to talk about here, of course, is Big Ben Roethlisberger, who continues to look pretty good after a stretch where he looked pretty bad over the Steelers' 3 losses. Kyle, I'll ask you first on this one here. Ben was dicing the ball around for a couple of drives. He was pretty accurate. He didn't make big mistakes aside from that fumble, which, I mean, it depends. If it was 10 years ago, wouldn't have been a fumble. But just your general thoughts on Ben Roethlisberger, and if he's playing more like the way we need him to play to continue to win games.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was I guess on a pass-fail scale, this was definitely a passing performance. The deep miss was, we had another one of those. That was a bummer. The fumble, it seems like we're having a turnover every game, like one turnover a game from Ben. And it's like, that's going to,
every week, but week 1. Yep.
Yeah. So that's I hate to say, like, how do we turn that around? I don't know if you do with Ben, because that's just how he plays in the pocket there. But I think, during the game we had, I think fourth quarter, 4 minutes left and Ben in control. I said, this is where you want us to be. You want Ben with the ball, 4 minutes left in the fourth to win the game. I'll take that every week.
Yeah, Ben, he's been there and done that. That's for sure. Now, Dave, what do you think of the Steelers' old gunslinger? Did he impress you today?
I mean, he has his moments, and then he has fumble. You know what I'm saying? It's you. I said it earlier that the Steelers are in overtime. Like, oh man, just don't have the bad turnover that loses the game or something like that. You always know that at any moment, Ben Roethlisberger could make that big play, and at the same time, he could go for that big play and have it not go their way and turn into a big play for the other team. That's the potential of what you have with Ben. So it's just ride or die with him. That's what the Steelers are doing, and you just hope each week that he's having a good game.
Yeah, to me, he's looked his best in the 3 wins. He's looked his worst in the 3 losses.
Yeah, you're spot on there.
So I guess the last big name we need to talk about on offense was one young Najee Harris, who continues to chew up yardage. I believe total yardage-wise, over 100 yards once again, scores another touchdown, I believe, for a 4th consecutive week now. Najee's been playing some pretty dang fine football. Dave, what do you think of the Steelers super rookie running back and what he's been able to put on the field?
Yeah, I mean, believe it or not, it was in the first half where the Steelers were, moving the ball. They were up 14-0, but it didn't seem like they were really getting Harris going. It seemed like the Seahawks were saying, nope, we're not going to let him beat us. Just like has been happening for most of the games for the Steelers, that they're saying, you're not going to beat us with the run game. Ben Roethlisberger is going to have to get it done in order for you all to win. And notice what happened after the Steelers started to get it done with Ben Roethlisberger. Things opened up much better. And Najee Harris, he continues to run hard. He had one play where he kind of slipped. Otherwise, he's doing a really good job of just not going down on first contact. And I mean, he's what you want out of a first round draft pick if you're going to use it on that position.
Yeah. The one negative play, I would say, when Jamal Adams smacked him, probably the hardest hit Najee Harris has probably ever taken in his career. He popped up with a big smile on his face. I was concerned, but I think Najee was loving it. Kyle, what do you think of Najee's day?
What I loved to see was in the 4th still, when it was 17-17. And, I think there was a 4-yard, 1st and 10 for 4 yards. And we had another 1st and 10 for 9 yards. There was, I think another 1st and 10 for 10 yards on that same drive. So late in the 4th, still running it. He's embracing contact. He takes it and falls forward. He's everything that it's been cracked up to be so far. There's no complaints.
Yeah, the Steelers rookies really have been excellent for them so far this year. And one of those rookies, and I guess position groups we should also touch on because they inevitably won us the game, the Steelers special teams guys. Of course, Christian Kuntz, Chris Boswell, and Presley Harvin III. Dave, I'll start with you on this one. Presley Harvin, he blasted a couple punts. I'm sure Jeff Hartman was somewhere over there in Maryland smiling away. There's the one shank, but he was bombing the ball around. Of course, Chris Boswell was automatic again, and no complaints from the long snapper. What did you think of the operation and all those special teams guys?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to cut down on the one bad punt, but I mean, it was frustrating. I tweeted it out during the game. Presley Harvin had more punts in the first quarter for the Steelers than he had the entire previous week. You don't. He can be a better punter when you don't have to use him as much. I was impressed with his holding, even before the announcers brought it up on the 52-yarder that, he's doing a good job with the holding. That was probably the weakest part out of everything. But my goodness, how fantastic is it to have Chris Boswell? I mean, the 52-yarder where I was fairly confident with that one, but once the Steelers had the ball in overtime, I'm like, stop messing around and having Ben falling down on the field. Just go out and let him kick it. He's going to hit it. Just finish it, because I had no doubt that Boswell was going to hit that kick to win the game. And a lot of NFL teams don't have that right now. So I'm just really thankful that the Steelers have a guy you can depend on.
Yeah, outside of Justin Tucker and Chris Boswell, it seems like Matthew Wright, the ex-Steelers kicker, might be the 3rd best kicker in football.
What's
right
up
now.
with that guy kicking 50-yarders, man? If he could have done that last year against WFT, then the Steelers would have known how everything would have played out.
Oh man, yeah, no, it's a wild week. Weeks for kicking. Kyle, I'll throw this one down to you too before we start tying a bow on the show. What do you think of Chris Boswell out there today?
Well, but I mean, the stat came out, this week, third all-time best kicking accuracy or something in league history. So I think that's enough said. Hey, you got to give to Harvin, because the reason we shut them out in the first half was part of his kicking. I think every kick in that first quarter was it down within the 20 or no returns? I think they.
I mean,
aside from the shank, I think they were all inside the 20.
Yeah, and the one that he had to punt because Deontay Johnson wanted to go out of bounds on third down to save no, you don't want to stop the clock at the end of the first half like that on third down. Come on, just go down in bounds, and the game, and it would have been the half. But he punted one into that was his only time he's gone into the end zone this year, I'm pretty sure. But that was the perfect time to do it, because the last thing you wanted to do was let them run anything back. So you just put it in the end zone, and hopefully they would just take a knee, which they did.
And the Steelers eventually victorious in the game. Now we are at the top of our hour here. Closing thoughts from everyone. Kyle, I'll start with you. General sense on this game. What do you think?
I hate to say a classic when it's up against Geno Smith or whatever, but it's an instant classic. The best 3-3 Steelers team ever, and the happiest I've ever been to be 500. I think things are only looking up, for at least from the past 2-3 weeks.
No, absolutely. Dave, what are your closing thoughts?
3-3. I said it when the Steelers were 1-3. Don't worry about how are they going to get to 10 wins, how are they going to get to 8 wins, how are they going to get to where are they in the North? Now, win the next game. The Steelers had to get to they had to get their second win. They got it. I'm like, hey, now just worry about getting your third win. Great. Now they have to do is worry about getting their fourth win, and they have some time to get healthy and to get right a little bit, maybe work on some things, get some rest. Then you've got to just worry about win number 4. Everything else will happen. That's what you have to do from here on out. But the most important thing from this week is now Seattle has 4 losses.
There you go. That is great stuff right there. But I guess for me, closing thoughts here, the next one's the Cleveland Browns. The Steelers can win that. The Browns are very beat up. Someone said they had the record for longest injury report in the history of injury reports in the NFL this past week. And then a ton of other guys got hurt. It sounds like Kareem Hunt might have tore his Achilles. Baker Mayfield popped his shoulder out again. They are in some rough shape. So the Steelers might be able. Well, they have that revenge game first and foremost, heading up to Cleveland. But they might. They have them right for the picking. You win that game, the Steelers have a pretty clear path to a playoff spot, despite it only being week 8. But things start to look pretty good for them. Kyle, is there anything you want to plug before we say goodbye to everyone?
Hey, just listen to What Jin's Talking About on Fridays. We're having a blast doing it every Friday. We kind of lambast some of the hot takes on social media, and if you got a blue check mark, you put a target on yourself. So
fair enough, I suppose. I get ripped from everyone for having that stupid thing. But anyway, Dave, Dave, what do you got going on?
Well, what I need to talk about is, because I told everyone this would be happening. We've got 379 people in the live chat. We will be having an article coming out very soon. I'm pretty sure it'll be tomorrow. What's going on is it's the bye week, and we need, not that we need, but what else do we want to have to offer for the bye week at Behind the Steel Curtain? So we wanted to do something extra special with the podcast. So I came up with I'm like, oh, let's just go with alliteration. Let's use B's. So we have the BTSC bye week bonanza coming up. And we're basically going to try to run this when the Steelers players are off. So, we'll still have our coverage from the game that was for the next several days. And then the next week we'll get kicking into everything going on with going in to Steelers in their week 8 matchup with the Browns. But in between there, we're going to have some other stuff, and we're going to get some breakdowns of, hey, how's the season going so far with the Steelers and everything from our podcasters. But we also wanted to give you a chance. We wanted you all to have a chance to do to kind of have a voice with this. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to give you the opportunity to send us a 60-second audio clip that we will put out on our podcast platform. We'll put a bunch of them together on our podcast platform. You can send those to Bryan Anthony Davis. Man, I was supposed to have his email from him, and I didn't have it, so I'm going to look it up while I'm talking. And we have a few things that we want you to do. We want you to basically tell us your thoughts on the season so far. Well, first of all, we want to tell us who you are and where you're from. If you're in the live chat, or if you are a commenter on the website, tell us your street name. Okay. Then tell us, what are your thoughts on the Steelers, being 3-3, everything so far. Where do you see this Steelers team going forward? You've got to keep it clean, keep it appropriate, try to give us some good audio. You can just record it on like your voice memo thing, or whatever voice recording you have for a phone, and you can send it to one Bryan Anthony Davis at BADavis8889 That is BADavis8889 We will have an article up on the website. We would love to get those, to hear from you all and give you all a voice for you to have a chance to be heard on our podcast platform. So we're hoping you all take advantage of that. We thought it was a nice, fun idea. I hope I plugged it all right. I would put that email address in the live chat, but I don't think it'll actually come through. They block it when you try to do stuff like that on these things. So if anything else, make sure you come to behindthesteelcurtain.com and look for that information.
Yeah, great stuff. Enjoy coming on the show with both of you guys here doing the post-game show. Pleasure as always. I guess the last thing we need to say too is,
I guess it does work. Sorry.
There we go. So I guess the closing thought here is, make sure to click over to behindthesteelcurtain.com. I know knee-jerk reactions are already up there. Dave Schofield will have his game balls. I'll have a report card for early in the morning. Tons of information, breakdown on this game, some preview for, of course, the bye week, who's looking to come back in the lineup, all that great stuff is always available behindthesteelcurtain.com. So make sure you just you're locked into the website. And lastly, like it's been mentioned before, if you're only listening to the shows on YouTube and Facebook, you're only getting about a third of the story right now, wherever you get your podcast from. If you listen on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Pandora or Stitcher, wherever, search up Behind the Steel Curtain. Heck, just search up Steelers. We're probably number one. So just click over, subscribe, 5 stars, hit the like button, whatever it takes to get that content. Whatever you guys can do to support us means we can give you more of this great content we know each and every one of you love. The Pittsburgh Steelers were victorious 23-20 over the Seattle Seahawks in overtime, 3-3 heading into the bye week. For Kyle and Dave, my name is Michael Beck. Thank you for watching the post-game show. We will catch you guys in 2 weeks when the Steelers are back against the Cleveland Browns. Have a good night.